these tribes have an experience of nature. They just represent it and give meaning to it in a different way. It is not through words that they will transfer information or communicate information. It's through experience. If you have these members of these three different tribes along a ceremony of fire, leading with one of them, the other ones will recognize in the ceremony of fire probably many of their own meanings, and will understand through sensation and emotional experience of the ceremony what this third tribe is trying to communicate. So this kind of interaction, exchange, it was very normal between different tribes and cultures. It is only since written texts appear in our modern society that we have tried to transfer knowledge through written texts, which have been creating a great limitation in our capacity to be empathic, to know what the other one means. We know the meanings of the words, but we don't really know what the experience of the other one is, as was not transmitted an experience. One of the interesting aspects of education through experiences, many in the modern times say learn by doing, but there is another way of that. When you learn through sensory experience, for example, this is a method I use to facilitate music skills to young musicians or people that never use an instrument. So we will sit in a round with different kinds of instruments, and we will start touching the instruments. We will start hearing them. We will start tasting them. We will start recognizing the material, how it tastes, how it feels, how hard or soft they are, how they sound. So we establish first an experience with the instrument, and then later we start using it intuitively. Along this process, we achieve better results in learning than by just giving them the theory about music and about using the instrument. Because they could establish a sensory experience of the object they're going to relate. They could play with it first. They could recognize it, how the emotions and body react to the instrument. This is a lot more easy. And in the same way, if we teach young people about environmental care, we go to the field, nature, to a wood, and start touching plants, touching the earth, touching the stones. We start experiencing nature. And in that way, the meaning of nature is more easy for us to understand. Those are very simple examples. When we are talking about complex systems like organization or community collaboration, human factor, we can have the similar kind of access to the knowledge of these human systems of collaboration that we intend to manage and design.
So this learning through experience, there is also a way of learning elements management through a more sensory approach. It could be, for example, the 9-wave sensory massage. And have you had any experiences facilitating the management system through just a sensory or experience approach, or learning, or?
Yes, it is totally possible. Yes, it's a very, very how to say, rewarding experience. Let me see if I can give you a very concrete example. We normally use in elements management the water element, and with the water element we intend to transmit different kind of emotional states represented by at least 4 states of water. It could be vapor, steam, or liquid water, or it could be ice, or could be another kind of substance that is not between vapor and solid, liquid and solid. So each of these substances it's given a different kind of experience to our senses. One are more rough, more clear, more concrete, and another one are more flexible. We can associate that to different kind of states of mind and motion. So when we facilitate elements management, this kind of set of water elements, the use of them into a particular business situation becomes a lot more easy for manager or entrepreneur to understand the different kind of qualities of emotions that need to be used into the circumstance by referring to them by using one of the states of the mother of the element water.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in a startup, flexibility will be a lot useful. It depends on the context, but in general, flexibility will be a lot useful. And a kind of flexibility that has always as one goal. So, if you observe water in nature, water is following always the gravity as a liquid. It always finds a way into the direction of the gravity. And this is something unique. You can, in a startup, find a lot of flexibility in your work, but you need to keep always one direction. At least, we're just generalizing. We need to put this, put this in a context, in a real context, to know what does it mean. Probably the direction might need to change. But this kind of flexibility that doesn't lose a center and a principle, it's necessary along the startup. This is easy to understand, but as soon as we start working with elements and we start sensing the principle in the water, it is more easy for us to connect to the emotions, to the feelings, and to the behavior that is that we need to express into that circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot more easy for managers to call in themselves these kind of qualities, these kind of skills, by using the symbol of liquid water.
Mm-hmm.
More easy than by giving them training or a book explaining what flexibility is
mm-hmm.
in business, for example. This kind of training takes less than half an hour, and following practice of it and coaching might take, we say, about 3 to 4 weeks. Like one meeting or two along the week. So we can say that in about 6 hours we might have we can develop very important skills for management in a very, very simple and practical way, mm-hmm. without need to read anything.
Mm-hmm. So again, elements management is acting in a field that is really going beyond just a language or a mental, let's say, approach. Another question, is there a use of intellectual language and or intellectual knowledge transfer in elements management, or is it to say that, or how could you use an intellectual language and knowledge transfer in elements management, or if there is a use for that?
Yeah, well, we need to ask ourselves what means this intellectual language.
Sure.
What we do consider is this intellectual language. So we can refer to something that is very well known now in the modern culture when we're talking about the 2 hemispheres of our brain. Actually, we have 3. One that's more instinctive, and then we have one that's more related to language and math and these structures. Another one's more intuitive, more creative, more female, and another one's more male. Okay. So when we're talking about language, we can find a female way to use the language, mm-hmm. like using poetry or creating stories. Or we can find a male way to use the language, like giving analytic structures and definitions, and separating, categorizing, for example. So both things might be useful, but the question is, how do we use the language in order to create with the language an experience? That's the point about elements management. It's not about avoiding to use the language totally. Mm-hmm. It's more about how to give an experience through the language that can be a universal experience for every human being, independently of the culture. So if we use poetry, we learn that everyone in school, every person that reads a poem might find a different kind of meaning of it. And that's the purpose of art, to call in each of us a different kind of experience.